Hi everyone, it's Susie, and I am going to kind of go over how I make my magazine journals. I've had a couple of people ask, especially how I incorporate the papers in there. So it's not really a whole lot different than the little adorable paper bag journals that I did and did the tutorial on that. But I find a magazine that has a lot of good images or photos in it. So I've already cut up the little cottage journal that I'm going to use. This is the vintage cottage. It's also from the cottage journal that I get. Anyway, what I look for is some really pretty images that I can use not only in the little pieces like this, but as a whole page like this. Like if I was to cut this up, where it would make a whole page. That's what I'm looking for when I cut up a journal. I'm just looking for nice pages to be able to, when I fold it in half, will give me a nice look to the page. So that's mainly what I'm looking for. And in the cottage journal, they have a lot of edging around, so it's not the best magazine to use for a journal, as a book, because this takes away from the image on your page. So anyway, but it's the only magazine I have. I have another Daphne's Diary, a new one, but I'm not willing to cut it up yet. I haven't read it all the way through. So I just used what I had, which was the fall cottage journal. So, and also a lot of times it doesn't have a pretty image, where this one does, but most time it's advertisement on the inside of the cover. Now this cover would make a really good cover for a journal, because it actually has a nice look there to it. And like here is a really pretty, this would be a really pretty center page. So the center of the journal, I mean, where when you open it up to where you've bound it for your signature, that would be what you're opening to. So anyway, first I find my magazine. That's what I do. And then I just kind of go through and I cut the journal down. I cut the cover down, and I try very hard not to, especially cut off the name of the magazine, because I like that, which in this case I really had to. And I actually took the autumn, which was part of what I had cut off, and I attached over a little piece of the barcode there that was still for the price. So it covered it up. I used it. But this is a really pretty cover. And then on the inside, I actually just had to take some of the pages and cover over the advertisements, because I didn't like them. And then what I do once I get that cut out is I simply just pick papers, some different papers that I know that I want to use as a variety. And that's what I do. I just kind of pick out the papers I want to use, and then I just start folding them. Now on the cover, you're not going to get hardly any bigger than a 4 or 3 3/4, because once you cut the cover off, that's just the width you're going to get once you fold it. But the length, you can make it longer or you can make it shorter. I think this one was like 8.5. I'm always losing my ruler, but this one is an 8.5. Yeah, I'm pretty close to it. Anyway, that's just what you're going to get. So anyway, so I pick out my papers and I just start rearranging them in the way that I want them. And I start picking out the pieces of the magazine. Like this I've made for the center of my signature. When you open it up, it's going to show a really nice picture. So because of fall, I chose the cottage journal there magazine, because we're getting into fall and I'm kind of in the fall mood. So but you can't always get a good, and I don't like this because of the white. It takes away from the page, but That's just what the Cottage Journal kind of has a lot in. And also on some of my pages, if you want a pocket, just be sure not to cut off at your 8.5. Just leave what length there is to your page, and just fold it up to 8.5, and then whatever size you can get, you know, use it as your pocket. So I have a couple of these that are going to have pockets, but here's just like some vintage paper that I had bought. I didn't even have to copy stain this or anything. It just already looks aged, and I like that. You just don't get the crinkle, you know, the crinkle sound with it. But I did use some tea stain papers, like my doily. I put a doily in there. I just rearrange, and I just cut my papers the same size as the magazine. I don't know why I've got glue in there, but somehow I do. But anyway, I just cut the papers down to the same size that I have cut my pages to my magazine pages. And I just randomly insert them in there, you know, how I want them to be. Now, once I get all my pages kind of how I want them in the order that I want them to be, then I will start picking out like what pieces I want of the smaller images, the smaller photos from the magazine. And this is scrap, but I think I can still salvage this lace here. So I just kind of put them on some of my scrap paper that I have, or just a piece of paper, you know, a piece of coffee dyed paper, or whatever you're going to use. But now I don't glue the whole thing down. I just take a little runner there, and I just barely stick it on, because I'm going to stitch around all these. Here's a rule of thumb if you're using a sewing machine. I hear so many times that people's sewing machines mess up when they're trying to sew. But if you glue these down, your machine is going to have trouble going through that glue around your edges. So I just tack them on in the center, and then I just sew them around, and that's just how I attach these. I do not glue the whole thing down. That'll just get you into trouble with your sewing machine. So here are some pretty images. Like here, I've even taken this off, and I will end up stitching around this. This is just scrap here, so all of this is going to be stitched around and then cut out. So the back of my image here, or tag, is going to be coffee paper, coffee stained paper in the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and get my stitching around, get all these cut out. And here was a pretty piece of the fall paper that I think I'm just going to attach in my book somewhere on one of the pages. So I didn't back it with coffee stained paper. But I'm going to get these all stitched around and get them cut out. And then I will put them in my book. Now, as far as binding, I think you can just go and see how I bound the little adorable paper bags. If you'll just punch in adorable paper bag journal tutorial, it will take you there. And it's the same binding, the very same thing, just in a bigger scale. Instead of the little book, it will be in a bigger scale. I still just do 3. I don't do any more holes than 3. I still use my little paper piercer and my little wax cord with the darn needle. So anyway, but now I do not bind my book until I have completely sewn like my pockets down, or if I want to do any stitching, or if I'm going to add any of the ruffled fabric or the fabric tabs. I do all of that before I ever bind my book together. That way I can easily just take the page off, sew what I want to sew on it, you know, put it back in. That way you're not going to run an accident of tearing your book up if you've got it already bound and then you're trying to, you know, stick it under your machine. And so that's just kind of the way I do the albums, the little magazine journals. And that's how I incorporate my paper. I just simply cut it the size of the magazine page. And then I just randomly set them in how I want them to go. So anyway, that's basically it, guys. And I'm going to go ahead and get all my stitching done in the book. And I will kind of show you before I bind it maybe what I have done. So I'm going to do that, and then okay, I'm back, and I've got all the stitching done and all my little tags cut apart. I have actually went ahead and got them stuck where I want them to be. I usually wait until after I have it bound together before I do that, but I'm going to go ahead and bind the book for you to see. But anyway, I have all the little pieces put in there and stitched around, and the paper on the back of them. I just like to put paper on the back of my little magazine journals, and the reason why is because it just makes a nicer writing spot, and you don't have to back it that way. So anyway, I'm not sure where this little guy fell out of. I'll find him later, but anyway, okay, to bind the book, of course, I usually just make sure that all my signature is nice and, you know, tucked together. Sometimes like this, sometimes I have a little bit of problem with some of the pages moving, but for the most part, I just try to make sure that it's all nice and kind of where it needs to be. So, like this one here is also a little crooked, I see, but it may end up having to be a little crooked. Okay, so just make sure your pages are nice and tight in there and all the same length. And I did stitch around the cover already. I like to stitch around my cover. I just think it makes it look a little nicer. And I want to get to the center of my book. Okay, once I have got to the center of my book, I'm just checking to make sure that I've kind of got the same amount of cover on the top as I do the bottom, because I did make it a little bit bigger. Then I just eyeball center. I don't get real, just real picky about where center is. And I'm wondering if I want to do this in the white or the twine. I'll probably just go ahead and do it in the white. Oh, you know what? I think I'll do it in the twine. So I have some of this hemp. I just call it twine. But since it is for fall, I am going to try to, I'll just do it in the twine. So I just get my thread, put in my darn needle or my twine here, and I've got it poked through with my paper piercer, and you just get it stuck through there. And I have to use pliers. I can't pull that needle through without pliers, so I just take my pliers and pull it through. And I've got quite a few. This is quite a big signature, so there's quite a few pages in it. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I want it at the top, push it through, and I hope I'm in frame because I have to kind of see what I'm doing here to get this. Okay, and then you'll come outside in. On my first one I went inside out. This one comes outside in. So, alright, kind of get it pushed through there. And I'm going to take this and push it through. Okay. I've got a little more twine than what I needed. And when you pull to tight, don't go this way. Pull going out or you'll rip your pages. That's a good rule of thumb to remember. Don't try to pull them to each other. Just kind of pull them away from each other, your twine. Okay, then what I do is I just kind of eyeball the distance from here to here down here on the bottom. I don't always get it, but it'll be close. I don't measure anything when I do these. Okay, and then just make sure you got a good hole poke through there. And then here you'll go from inside to out. Okay, let's just get that pulled out of there. Okay. And then I just make sure I get this one pulled out of there a little bit. Okay, now I've got to come back through that hole where I started. So what I usually do is I take my paper piercer and I just try to get back in that and kind of just try to widen it a little bit, because I'm going to try to get that other thing in there. So my needle, I'm going to try to get another twine pushed through that hole. So, and then when you come through, you want to get on the opposite side of your twine or your waxed cord. Usually I use waxed cord, but okay, so I'm going to pull that through so that way that I have a twine on one side of my string and a piece of twine on the other side of the string. I always look and make sure that I'm going to have it a little tight. I don't want it real loose, so that it holds really nice and tight. Okay, and then you just make you a little knot, and then cut some of that off, and then just make you another little knot. Okay, and that is now bound. So here is the binding right there. It looks nice and tight, which is the way I like it to look. Here is the cover. We'll just kind of go through it now. And here's my piece that I have just glued on. And I did use this, they call it paper tape. It's actually where the surgical tape is, the nylon tape. And I've been using it on the inside and then the nylon on the outside. For the simple fact, just to hold it a little better when it's going through that paper. And here I've got my little tags. This one I've just folded over the page. Here's my doily. Here's my little pull out one there. Here is a pocket. And I'm just going to kind of slip that in there for now. And then here is just the cottage journal. I just cut it off the inside front cover. Okay, here's just the pretty page. Here is, and I'm supposed to get some orange sari silk this week. It's supposed to be in. So I'm waiting till I get that orange sari silk so that I can tie that to that, and that's what I'm going to actually wrap around the journal. I have just decided to wait on the sari silk. Here is just a couple little tags that I made, but anyway, this is the majority of what it's going to look like. I will do another video once I get all the sari silk. I'll probably put some tabs in this too, but then I'll do a video of the whole thing. But anyway, here's my twine in the middle. I like to leave those long. I don't usually tie anything on them. I know a lot of people do tie the little hearts or little things on there, but I just like the knots and the string. So, and this is just a little Autumn Comfort. Luxury need not have a price. Comfort itself is luxury. Jeffrey Bean. But anyway, I put that in a little crocheted pocket. That was one of the things that I sewed on. Here's another couple of the tag and a little tag there. Piece I've just overlaid. This is really pretty. This was one of the little pretty things out of the magazine. It was I think I got it upside down, a wreath. and then I've backed it here in the, some more of my little rusted paper clips. And then here is another pull out. I had one pocket coming from the bottom, and this one I wanted coming from the top. So I've just made one of each in this. Here's just a little flip. You can just kind of tuck something if need be. But anyway, here is kind of what the journal will look like. But anyway, there's all my pieces put in, and this is actually how I make the magazine journal. So like I said, I'll do a video once I get all the orange tabs and the wraparound and things on it and have it completed. So anyway, thanks so much.